So I'm Janelle Hayes Bruno. I grew up in Indiana. I went to high school in New Jersey and then moved to Rhode Island when I came to school at URI, and I've been here ever since. And this is my mom, Susan Hayes.
And I grew up in Indiana, Elkhart, Indiana, and raised a family there. And we had to corporate move to New Jersey when Janelle was sophomore in high school. And then she went to URI and moved to Westerly. And then we moved here 10 years ago because they started having a family.
So, Mom, we come from a really long line, I would say, of especially women who have volunteered and
Yes.
done work for nonprofits. And from the time I was little, you always volunteered, and especially with abused and neglected children. So what made you start doing that and doing that work?
We were living in Cincinnati, and there was a little boy who was going to different neighbors, and you could tell he was neglected. And my neighbor told me, she says, I don't know what to do. The neighbor boy comes to the house, and he's got a really dirty diaper. He was 3 years old, and she would offer him cookies or something what her little kids were eating, and he would just gobble them up. And I said, well, she was concerned. She says it's two sisters living together, and they don't seem to pay much attention to the children. He had older siblings, and so I said, well, you should really call Child Services and let them know if you have concerns. Well, she didn't. So a week or two later, I don't know how long later it was during the summer, and it was more like September, October, and they couldn't find him. His name was Timmy. They couldn't find him, and the sister said, well, we got to take the other kids to a ball game, so we'll look for Timmy when we come back. Well, they come back later, but the neighbor heard the story. He was a retired police officer, and he went into the above-ground pool, which was very dirty, and came up with, I still get emotional about it just because, a lost child. So anyways, he came up with the child's body, and I never forgot that. If someone would have got involved, I didn't feel like I could call because I didn't know where he was coming, which house he was coming from. The neighbor did, and she saw him. I'd see him in the neighborhood, but I didn't see him like she did. So I often thought if I could ever help do so. I've always been an advocate for children or someone that was being bullied or anything. So when we moved on to New Jersey, first we were in Indiana. When we moved back to Indiana from Cincinnati, there was a CASA program, Court-Appointed Special Advocates for Abused and Neglected Children, through the court system. So I took the training and was appointed by the court, and I had several cases. And then we moved to New Jersey, and so I worked probably a total of 16 years as a court-appointed special advocate, and I had a passion for it. And it was my first case in Indiana was tough because it was a pretty bad case. 3 children terribly neglected, and they were more neglected than abused. And I thought, well, how quick could I get these children in my car and get out of here? But that wasn't my job. So you give reports, you visit the children, you visit the family.
And you're there to support the child.
But sometimes
their advocate or their voice in court.
Always, yes. But sometimes you realize you're there to support the family. Sometimes they're made to do all these things through the court system, and either they don't have a card, can't get to the visitation, and so they go 2 steps forward and 3 back. But then sometimes the parents do nothing, and so you have to be their advocate. And this first case, the Child Services wanted to close it And I said to the judge, I said, it's not ready to be closed. These children will not be safe. So he didn't close it. So I felt I had a voice in the court system, which is still hard because, sometimes they give those children to the wrong parent who was abused by them in the first place. So I had a passion for this.
I remember as a little girl, you would have to go to visit some of your cases, but you could never give us too much information. And
Yeah.
I think that always, has carried with me, the work that you would do and, how you would impact those kids' lives. And I'm sure to this day they remember you and are grateful for the work you did on their behalf.
I've gotten letters. One young man in Indiana, his father had beaten him with the board because he was only 15, but he came out as gay. And he just wanted to go back to California to his mom. He wanted to go into theater, and so that's another case when I went to court. And he even asked me to come to his psychologist with him. And he said, I just want to go back to California to see my mom, be there, live there, because it wasn't a good place for him in Indiana with his dad. So I worked in the court, put a report and told the judge he needed to go back to California. And so,
did he?
Yep,
And
he
he did.
approved it, and I got a couple letters from that young man.
Yeah.
And then
Important work,
very important, because people don't pay attention sometimes, and then, after the fact, they do,
Right.
but pay attention and see signs. Even when your brother was in baseball, and there was a young boy that couldn't play baseball because his mom was gone all the time, and they were little, and I found out later his mom had him at 15. And he wanted to play, so I picked him up, and he said, well, I got to watch my siblings. I said, well, I couldn't do it nowadays. I said, get in the car,
Right.
You're going to go play ball. And the baseball team got him a mitt,
Yeah.
and he played.
And just helping take care of people who aren't even in your family, right? Who may need help. And I remember when, again, we were living in Indiana, and there was a boy who received, he was a freshman, and he received a letter.
Lettered in wrestling.
He lettered in wrestling, but his family couldn't afford to buy him.
You told us about him.
Because he was one of my classmates, and couldn't afford to buy him
his letter
jacket, which in the Midwest, that's a really big deal.
In wrestling, yep.
And
his first year.
That next week, you went to the school office and you bought him a letter jacket, but didn't let him know who it was from anonymously.
Yeah. And the athletic director, the girls' athletic director, said, you can't do that. I said, yes, I can. And she wasn't going to let me, so I went to the principal, and he got the letter jacket.
So I think those are things that get, you teach them by doing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
That's right. Teach your children by doing.
Thanks for tuning in to the United Theater Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode. And if you could take a moment to leave a review, we'd greatly appreciate it. Your feedback helps us create content that you love. So hit that subscribe button and leave us a review, and we'll see you on the next episode.